Yeah, all right. I think I do. Okay, this is Vicki Gordon from the Port of Pasco. I'm going to call this meeting to order this morning. We start out with our convening statement. Before we begin, translation services are available free of charge upon request.
Antes de que comencemos, servicios de traducción de forma gratuita son disponibles bajo petición.
Thank you. Benton-Franklin Council of Governments was established by a voluntary association of the local units of government in 1966 with the vision of providing a forum for improved communication, multi-jurisdictional decision-making, regional planning, and the capacity to serve as lead agency in providing multi-jurisdictional programs. The services provided to the member jurisdictions are outlined by interlocal agreement and can evolve with the needs of the region. Benton-Franklin Council of Governments currently fulfills the following designations on behalf of the Benton-Franklin region: Regional Planning Commission, Conference of Governments, Regional Transportation Planning Organization, Metropolitan Planning Organization, Transportation Management Area, Economic Development District. The Benton-Franklin Council of Governments Board of Directors simultaneously serves as the governing body for the Benton-Franklin Council of Governments, Benton-Franklin Metropolitan Planning Organization, Transportation Policy Board, Benton-Franklin Walla Walla Regional Transportation Planning Organization, and Benton-Franklin Economic Development District. We share this information at the beginning of each board meeting to provide context to the information shared and actions taken during the meeting. We'll have roll call now. Benton-Franklin Transit, Benton County, present. City of Benton City, City of Connell,
Lee is excused.
City of Kennewick,
Gretel and John is excused, but
Carrie Rose.
Carrie Rowe is here.
Okay. City of Pasco,
Charles Grimm.
City of Prosser, City of Richland,
Joanna Jones here.
City of West Richland,
Kate is on her way and will be here in a few minutes.
Franklin County,
Clint Didier.
Port of Benton,
Roy Keck.
Port of Kennewick,
Skip Novakovich.
and Port of Pasco, Vicki Gordon here. WashDOT, Brian here this morning? No? All right. Thank you very much. Do we have any guests? Did I see one on there? If we have any guests, I don't think so.
Carrie is a guest with us this morning
Okay.
from the city of Kennewick, and he is online.
Okay. I would call for approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? No?
Madam Chairman, I move approval of the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Skip. Is there a second?
I'll second Roy Keck.
Thank you, Roy. Been moved and seconded to approve the agenda this morning. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Okay, do we have any public comment? I don't imagine we do since we don't have any guests. Okay, let's move on. 5 facts. What's the bridge idea? This is going to be fun. Eric or Aaron, please.
All right. Thank you. So the presentation today is called What's the Bridge Idea? This is specifically talking about what is the history behind the idea of the North Richland Bridge. And why are we talking about the North Richland Bridge? As we'll talk about later in your packet about a regional snapshot of how our regional transportation system is looking now and in 20 to 25 years, we have some congestion and we are experiencing some congestion today. So what is that path forward on how we're alleviating it? There's many different options. This is just one of them. And I think as this history telling will lay out in front of you, this is an idea that gets brought up a lot, but why hasn't it come to fruition? So let us dive in. So I'll say before we really settle in on some things, so you are going to learn some history of the Tri-Cities transportation system, speculate on some ideas for the future, and some random trivial knowledge that you can probably impress some of your colleagues or other people with. And then from a planning side, this is a really cool, I'll say, juxtaposition of where does data and then community input sway? When does the community become correct when data says that their input is not? So laying all that out in front of you, let's dive into it. So we have the Tri-Cities. Here's our geographical area that is not a surprise to any of us. However, I will just take a quick poll of the group. At what point does we'll say a landmass become a mountain? Anybody have a guess?
I do.
So it's when it is above 980 feet from sea level. That determines a mountain. So that is why there are the Horse Heaven Hills that we have just south of the urban area. And then we have Badger, Candy, and Red Mountain, and Rattlesnake Mountain. Rattlesnake Mountain is the tallest treeless mountain in the world. It is 500 feet taller than Snoqualmie Pass. So just as a point of reference, how Rattlesnake Mountain does shift weather. Snoqualmie Pass kind of sets the precedent of what weather is for us. Rattlesnake Mountain also does that.
So that's just not in the US, it's in the world.
Correct.
I thought, oh wow.
I will say fact checking that is incredibly difficult. So until somebody proves me wrong in my Google search, we're going to live with that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So a lot of plateaus are over 900 feet. Are they all mountains then?
No, it has to be that's a good question, Roy. It comes into what determines a peak. So there is the highest point in Benton County is actually taller, or it's like Jump Off Joe area.
Yeah.
But that doesn't have a peak or a crest, so it's just a area rather than a mountain.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we are an area of the confluence of three major rivers. So going back to our original history of when these rivers became very famous in the terms of expedition. So this is Meriwether Lewis's sketch of the Tri-Cities area when they landed in the Pasco Ainsworth area in 1805. Where they landed now is Sacagawea Heritage Park, and they came down the Snake River, and at this moment, when they hit the Columbia River, they knew the Columbia River emptied into the Pacific Ocean. So this was a massive moment in their expedition, knowing that they are going to find their way to the Pacific Ocean. All right, so jumping forward some years, 1884, we have the Pasco Burbank Bridge and the Tellerman Ferry. They are operated and constructed. So you see the bridge on the right side of your screen. This is the rail bridge that goes over the Snake River. And then we have the Tellerman Ferry that operated at the Columbia Point location. This was a ferry that operated moving 6 cars at a time and cost a quarter per car to go across. You can still see remnants of this today, looking right under where the Lee Vulcan test bridges are.
Our first water taxi.
Yes, water taxi. And there's a U.S. Department highway map of 1931 that has this still showing as where the only predominant way to get across from North Richland to West Pasco. 1888, so we have the Northern Pacific Bridge. This is a rail bridge now connecting over the Columbia River. This is present day where the Lamson headquarters are on the Kennewick side. This is one of the first major rail bridges to go over the Columbia River, not just in our area, but in the entire Pacific Northwest. And this connects, was then Ainsworth, now Pasco, to Kennewick. Jumping forward to 1922, we have the Green Bridge. This was the first car bridge built across the Columbia River in the Tri-Cities, allowing residents of the region to have a way to move across the region via a bridge, not the ferry, excuse me. This cost $480,000. Today, that's about $9.12 million. And there was a toll on this bridge for the first 9 years to repay the construction cost. It was a quarter each time you went across. They repaid it in 9 years at $53,000 per year. So that, in today's money, that's just north of $1 million, which is pretty impressive. And at this point, our area gets the nickname the Twin Cities. Moving forward, 1948, we have the Columbia River flood, and that kind of shapes how the transportation system is going to be built out. There's also other things happening in our region at this time. We have the Manhattan Project. We have massive development happening up north that is a little bit, we'll say, secretive to the rest of the region. So with that flood, it washed out several bridges that were in place already. I'll say, so in 1940 to 1950s, the idea of a North Richland Bridge first starts to be sprinkled in or have discussions about by the Atomic Energy Commission. They float the idea, but it's never funded for a study. In 1950, the Atomic Energy Commission builds a rail bridge into Richland for a more direct access. Before this, there was only a rail access line from the northwest portion of the Hanford site. In 1907, there was an original small wooden bridge built where the current bridge is today, the 1951 bridge. It was washed out in the 1948 floods, and then there was an even smaller Bailey Bridge put in until 1951. A Bailey Bridge is a wooden, well, I'll say simplistic, it's a wooden term. Has anybody been to Hawaii? When you take those one-lane bridges that you feel like they're going to collapse at any time, that's a Bailey Bridge. So 1951, the Atomic Energy Commission, still wrestling with that idea, they build a bridge, four-lane bridge across the Yakima River. As we were discussing before this, the previous route for somebody to get from Richland to Pasco was go Richland to West Richland down to almost Benton County into Kennewick, and then you'd cross over into Pasco at the Green Bridge. So it's about a 45-minute trip that now takes today anywhere from 8 to 12 minutes. So think about that. And then with the building of this bridge, we now get the formation of the Tri-Cities nickname. Today, there's about 79,000 average daily traffic on this. 1954, fast forward 3 years, we have the Blue Bridge. The Blue Bridge was built due to the Green Bridge not being able to handle the 10,000 vehicles per day across it. The Green Bridge was a two-lane bridge. It cost $71 million to build, so that's roughly about $83 million in today's funding, and it has roughly about 68,000 vehicles going over it each day. Say a little thing on the Blue Bridge. It was originally painted green. The community was in uproar about having two green bridges, and then we changed it to the Blue Bridge. Oh. Fast forward to 1978, we have the Cable Bridge, built to replace the two-lane Green Bridge, and this is deemed the landmark of the Tri-Cities, and also can be seen in the COGS logo. This is the first major cable-stayed bridge to be built in the U.S. It was second longest in the world at the time, and it's around $30 million when it was built in 1978. That'd be roughly about $120 million today. So as we can see in the 70s, we're already starting to build out our bridge system and how we want to be connecting our regional transportation system. But with that, looking back to the 1940s and 1950s, there was the idea of that North Richland Bridge still looming. So with that, during this time, and I'll talk about this in the next slide, there is the interstate system being planned as well. Outside the interstate system, our region was still, and I'll say specifically the Richland Atomic Energy Commission was looking at still putting a Columbia River toll bridge at North Richland. This was first studied in 1970. It was then updated in 1976 and then 1980. It was deemed that the bridge could be built. It is physically feasible for the bridge to be built. However, the bonds and the financial risk that the region would have to take on would be too much. So essentially for every dollar that we would borrow, we would then have to repay $1.30 in those times. So what looking back at 1970 bond markets was a little, also in the hard research of this, but it was deemed to be a major financial risk, and we did not move forward with that. So, as I was alluding to, the interstate system. In that 1980 study, it said the bridge could be built, but the bridge should be reassessed after the implementation of the interstate system. The interstate system was first planned not to come into the Tri-Cities region at all. Lobbyists from the Tri-Cities got onto this process early, and then they started to look at what is the route number 4. It was originally planned to have the interstate system go down the old Blaylock route, which is the original, we'll say, highway system, the old 410 before it went through the Tri-Cities. And then it was the number 1 option, and then the number 4, and then it was the number 7 option. If you look at the number 7 option, what is it doing, and where is it crossing? North Richland Bridge. So, but with that, there was still some, the state of Oregon was very upset that this was going to bypass the Umatilla area where there was already a bridge in place. So they settled on the number 4 location and then following down to the number 2. So with that, we have the interstate system. This was one of the fun facts that I found out during this presentation is that 1983, the R.C. Bremer Bridge was put in. I could, when typing in the R.C. Bremer Bridge, you will not find an image of this bridge. The only 2 spots that I could find the name of this was on the WashDOT bridge list. This is the bridge just below Queensgate, and then where the Erin flyover is going to be connecting. So it's that bridge over the Yakima. R.C. Bremer is a PR firm that I believe did some work for WashDOT in the 80s, and that is how they got this bridge named after them. This bridge was opened in 1983, and the Lee Volpen test bridges were opened in 1984. There was a portion of the interstate that was already operating before these bridges were completed, and then same thing in Pasco. The interstate was already operating before these bridges were opened up. But with these 2 major bridges opening up in the Tri-Cities, this opened up major growth within our region, and this also was the first bridge between Pasco and Richland. So between the 80s and 2000, we still have that looming idea of the North Richland Bridge. Hasn't been studied, hasn't been called out. In 2000, there was the Red Mountain Interchange and I-82 study. This looked at the feasibility of a Red Mountain Interchange with the floating idea of how can we make this lack of a better term, a loop. So looking at the screen where the red line, red arrow is calling out, how can we make the interstate system connect to that circle and then over the Columbia River? From that 2000 study, it was deemed that the Columbia River crossing needs to be looked at again. BFCOG staff in 2006 developed the first regional transportation demand model for our region and then looked at 3 Columbia River crossing locations. That would be adding on to the Blue Bridge, a bridge at Road 68 in Edison, and a bridge at Columbia Center and Road 100. The results of this study said that they need to do more, another study, which was then done in 2010. So this was the big study that was last done in 2010 and then adopted by the board in January of 2011. Looked at 10 potential different locations. The top ranked location was the Edison to Road 68. Number 2 was Road 100 to Columbia Center. 3 was adding capacity onto the Blue Bridge. And then number 4 was a North Richland Bridge at that number 2 location that you see on your screen. All right, so that happened in 2010, 2011. And then in 2015, there was an update of the Red Mountain Interchange analysis. Within this analysis, they did have the North Richland Bridge within the model to see if it assisted or alleviated any of the impact of the Red Mountain Interchange. So during this time, even back in 2015, we were planning to have this North Richland Bridge be a part of our future and still being a part of our transportation system. In 2019, the city of Richland, partnering with West Richland, Benton County, and WashDOT, completed a north-south capacity study looking at the North Richland Bridge and another bridge location of the Kingsgate Bridge. The North Richland Bridge was modeled and it was ranked as the 4th alternative, the lowest alternative, due to the cost and the financial burden it would put on the region. It scored the best in origin destination alleviation. However, that does have some other side effects. Does it alleviate the current situation versus the trade-offs into the future? In 2020, the Dupertail Bridge opened up, offering a solution to the Hanford 500 that is currently and still on the SR 240. Excuse me, I flip ahead in my slides. This would cost about $38.5 million for construction. The RC Bremer Bridge was holding about 54,000 people per day before the construction of the Dupertail Bridge. Now that bridge is having about 50,000. So this bridge has definitely helped in alleviating congestion from this location, but rather than say alleviating it all, it has shifted or spread it out to different spots. So that was a quick bridge history. In your packet, for one of the, and is a more detailed timeline of the transportation system. There's a lot of different bridges that were constructed in our region. For example, the West Richland Bridge, also known as the Fallon Bridge, the Benton City bridges, all of that's within your packet. But, so looking back 50 years, why 1974? This was the last time a major study, or the first time a major study was done. The 1970 study was alluded to. I have not seen a copy of it, so that's why we went with 1974. Our population was just north of 113,000. To today, that's 111% population increase. Looking forward 50 years to 2074, we have a 117% population increase forecasted. This is using OFM's high projections. So not the normal, not low, this is our high projections. Throughout looking at our growth rates, Tri-Cities does not follow the median, we follow the high numbers. So when looking at high projections, that is more accurate with our averages. So even looking back 50 years, it's 111%. Looking forward, 117% doesn't seem that drastic. So we are projected to grow a lot more going forward. With that being said, what is the future of our transportation system? What are the solutions that could be on the horizon for us? Could Edgar here be looking out at another bridge in the future? Do we want to be looking at putting in another bypass? Do we want to be looking at addressing the at-grade crossings or increasing capacity to our existing bridges? I would leave it at that, and I'm open for any questions.
That was a great presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. It doesn't seem like that long ago. Any questions? Anybody online that has any questions for Aaron? All right. I guess we're not going to solve the problem today.
No.
Next, we have the consent agenda, and you all have copies in your packets of the voucher summary for October, the minutes of the regular meeting held October 20th, and the revolving loan fund balance report, which always looks really good. I'm always really impressed. Everybody's
Keeping right up.
doing their payments and keeping up. Is there any discussion on any of these items on the consent agenda?
Madam Chairman, I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Skip. Second. Thank you, Kate. Seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Reports. Aaron. Do you need a drink of water?
No, I'm okay. Thank you. All right. So this is your monthly update on our transportation improvement program, also known as the TIP, and our obligation status. With this being early in the federal fiscal year, we do not have any projects that have obligated yet. Our obligation target for 2025 is 8.79 million, and we have a total of 10.1 million programmed in 2025. Something to be of note for board members and jurisdictions is that we are planning to hold a call for projects in early 2025 to set us up for federal fiscal years 26, 27, 28, and potentially 2029 as well. So that will be on the horizon. In the December TAC meeting, we will be discussing how we want to have the process changed or any ideas to improve it as well. So if you have any ideas, if you were around for the last call for projects, please communicate with your staff to let them know. Next item is the Regional Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. This is a monthly update on what we have been doing for the CSAP. The CSAP, so what has been going on is, also provide a little framework of what this is. So this is a framework for our region to reduce roadway fatalities and serious injuries around the entire region. One thing of note that was brought forward to us by the city of West Richland is that the Regional Comprehensive Safety Action Plan will help cities and counties be eligible to apply for the Highway System Improvement Plan through WashDOT. This is an annual $35 million budget that our jurisdictions will now be able to apply for. Given the timing of this, the jurisdiction or the counties, it goes in an every other year cycle. We're not sure if the plan will be done yet for counties to apply in 2024. However, it will be ready for them in 2026. We are communicating with the counties though to have what I'm going to call a draft version available that could fulfill the requirement for that application. So what has been going on? There's been an input of WashDOT data from 2018 to 2023 into GIS to complete a historical crash analysis and network screening. I'll show a quick slides on that. And then this is also our Comprehensive Safety Action Plan logo. So we're going to be using that in our public facing documents. So just as we'll say high point, we've had just north of 28,000 total crashes throughout the region over the last 6 years. Here is a heat map of where those crashes have taken place. Points of notice are near Road 68, what is that, 395 and Clearwater, and it looks like the Queensgate area as well. And then before you is a detailed table of how our region is doing versus statewide crashes. So the state is down 10% over the last 6 years. We are up 5.5%, but as our region is growing, this is something that could be anticipated. We just want to make sure that these crashes are not of the serious or fatal nature. All right, so what is the next steps for the CSAP? Staff will still be working on a data analysis methodology, including a high-risk network analysis and an emphasis areas to pair with our Title VI data as well. We'll be having public engagement efforts using a social pinpoint interactive mapping activity. This is going to be similar to what the city of Richland had for their pedestrian safety action plan, a way for residents to click and say, here's where I experienced a crash, here's where I know a point of conflict is, and that will be eligible for the entire region, allowing it to be used by cities, counties in these applications. There will be a convening of a working group and conducting stakeholder interviews. Any questions on the CSAP before I move on?
I'm just curious, how are we going to choose who's going to be the working group for that?
That will be done, I'll say through the TAC. It'll probably have a level of involvement from them, and then also branching out to other stakeholders that we have interacted with through the Safe Routes to School. When we have a formalized list, we'll bring it to the board, and if there's any suggestions, we'll be glad to add.
So it would be more stakeholders than just individual members of the community?
Correct.
Okay.
The CSAP is, as it is a regional, it's aimed to be technical in nature, but we still want that qualitative information in there as well. Any other questions? All right, moving right along. Regional traffic count program. Just an update that we are in the closing stages of the regional traffic count program. 719 sites in Benton and Franklin counties have been collected after next week. We have the final 4 sites set to be collected. I believe there's 2 sites in Pasco, 1 site in Franklin County, and 1 site in Benton County. And then that data will be sent out to each of the jurisdictions, and we will have a map up on our website. We will then be compiling a regional traffic count report that will identify and analyze some data trends on the roadways within the Benton and Franklin region. And this anticipated completion date is in March of 2025. So hopefully after next week, if you see some black tubes on the ground that you will go over, it's not us anymore. Wait 2 years. All right, the Regional Safe Routes to School Survey Report. So the link is included within your packet, but this is a much more public-facing report that was developed by Elizabeth Garcia and Daisy Schonder to a survey that was put out last summer for the Regional Safe Routes to School Plan. And within here, I will show some slides on what the report is, but this is supposed to be informative, a much more enjoyable government document, and a good visual experience. So as we can see going through here, trying to really reduce the amount of text and improve the overall visuals within it. Nice color palette. One thing of note that was very nice that was added is that you can see that there are some comments that on the right side of your screen here. These comments were provided within the survey, so it's giving voice to community members, letting them know that all of their input is not just being kept in a folder. We are using it, and it was passed along to jurisdictions. There, for example, in the TAC meeting, there was one quote within this that the TAC member, let's say, took a specific passion with to really identify and prove that there was a crosswalk at this location. So I'm glad that it is making a difference. Any more questions on the Safe Routes to School report? The anticipated adoption date of the Safe Routes to School plan is June of 2025. All right. Only 3 more left. All right, the regional system analysis. As I alluded to earlier, this was a partnership that was done through the COG and WashDOT to working to understand the constraints of our regional transportation system, to establish a baseline going forward. If we are to figure out what the solution is for our entire region, we need to know where the problem locations are now. And this is a way for the region and WashDOT to agree on where these locations are. Here is one of the maps that was provided within your report, and I'm not expecting you to get into the level of detail of looking at modeling things. However, the results of all of this analysis yielded exactly where we think the problems are. 240, 182, 395, other locations that you can see in brighter colors, but this allows us to now have a agreed standpoint to build on. Here are the problem locations going forward. If there is to be a North Richland Bridge or addressing at-grade crossings or building onto 395, we can say, how is it impacting these current issues?
You know, I had to absorb a little bit about the North Richland Bridge. I know you're probably going the second time. You mind if I say something?
Oh, yeah, no, please.
So I think you have like 319,000 population in the area, that Franklin County area. I think you said it was 600, it almost doubled.
Yeah.
50 years. And so I look at it on the math side and just a dollar and cent side. I know we had a couple of initiatives. One was in Franklin County for the 911. We had one for the school bond. You know, recently those things have failed. And then I look at, I know in Richland, we were doing the Beavertail Bridge that was set up for a 20-year period to sunset for a $20 car tab fee that got paid off in 4 years, and now 100% of that's being basically used If you look at roads from, a school grade side A to F, that's just enough to go ahead and keep it at a sea level. I know the city of Richland, I know Joanna Jones is on there too. Eventually that's going to have to be raised, because I know when Peter Kowski goes on there, public works, that cost is going to have to go up just to maintain that. I know they're probably the same thing with the city of Kennewick. Their road system, they're probably going to have to do something to maintain just to a sea level on that. So I just see that, if it's going to happen in 10, 15, maybe 20 years, we're going to, with the bonds and everything, because it's super expensive to do on that bridge or any of that big of a scale. I would imagine, I'm just curious what you would think, that population is going to have to increase to be able to support a bond that big, maybe 15, 20 years out. I don't, what's your gut on that? I'm just curious.
There are
expectations for you here.
I'll say local jurisdiction budgeting, I'm not the biggest expert on.
I'm a weird math budgeting guy. I want to see, because you might know something better than me.
There's, and this is something that we'll discuss, is so there's the gas tax, the current rate of the gas tax was put in 1993. There has not been an increase of the gas tax since then. That was the year before I was born, so gas tax hasn't been increased since I've been on Earth. There have been discussions about a road usage charge, so allowing people to, for the increase in EVs that will be coming on and more efficient vehicles, people will have to be starting to increase their share, their paid share of the road. However, if you are not using your car that much, you will not pay as much, and you are not going to be what they call is double taxed or double dipped. So if you pay to fill up your gas tank, you're already paying a tax once. If you go above a certain number of miles, you're not going to pay again. You're only going to pay us to a certain number of miles. This is going to be rolled out over the next 5 years in a pilot program, and then it will be give the yay or nay after that. Washington and Oregon are the first two connecting states to be testing this, so that could be something that could
I'm just kind of estimating, as I'm a weird numbers person, that population is going to have to increase by a lot more before this. So it's probably going to be a 20 year down the road project. And I think the cities are going to look at it because we got that 911 and communications thing that's going to cost, I'll say in the middle, 30 million, probably 35, but I think it's down or so on top of the road. So it's interesting because I know we need it, but that was going to be some challenges in the road for some of our transportation things that are coming up that the city's going to have to maintain some of the counties.
And that you can't toll a existing road, but if you build new roads, you can toll them, and that is always an option for
that's a good point.
Jurisdictions. Does get into a little more of a dicey, say, situation when it's a city tolling a road versus a state route that is tolled. So that is something to further explore. If there is to be another major road put in, it's a state route, it's much easier to be tolled versus, say, a Benton County road or a Kennewick road.
Good point, thank you.
Yeah. Just a question about this map, or at least somewhat related to it. I know that there was discussion previously, several months back, about the change where we're not only looking at level of service for vehicle, but also for pedestrian. Will we be getting something soon that includes something like this and pedestrian level of service, or including pedestrians in the level of service for travel as a whole?
I'll say yes and no, but that alludes to my next item on my agenda that we can talk about. I'll say for the sake of this system analysis, it was particularly looking at freight increase in automobile traffic due to the massive growth in Horn Rapids area and the East Pasco. So that's what drove this. I will talk about I'll say pedestrian metrics in the next thing. Any other questions on this? All right, sweet. Regional bicycle plan. The draft version of the regional bicycle plan was released on October 13th for public comment, and we have completed all 3 of our open houses. We held one in Richland here at the COG office on October 16th. We held one in Pasco the day before Halloween on October 30th. It was really nice. We participated as part of a trunk or treat. It was good, good interaction with the community. And then we held one this week at the Kennewick Library on the 13th. Next up, we're going to be incorporating relevant feedback and public comments into the document's final design phase, and then pass along any public comments to jurisdictions as well. And then we will be presenting this to the TAC next month for recommendation for adoption. If they recommend it, then we will be bringing it to the board for adoption.
How is the participation in the, for public comment in the open houses?
It's been really good. We had about 7 people come to the Kennewick one, which, given the amount of, say, political things going on right now, is what we anticipated. We didn't foresee a lot of involvement. For example, during our kickoff series in March, we had about 20-25 people at each open house. So the numbers are down, but we are still getting people to come back and interact with us. At the Richland open house, there was 2 people that showed up.
I'm shocked.
Yeah.
I would have had to come.
Yeah, but that was a busy day.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
busy
it
day.
was, it was.
However, we had one individual that showed up that we have never interacted with before, that read our plan and was moved enough to come and let us know what they thought about it. That we found that to be very great, is that we are expanding the people that we are interacting with. And they said it was a better than expected government document, which we Yeah.
Hey, Aaron, just to throw out to the board too, since I don't think we've talked about it at another spot, is our staff and staff from BFT also did a social media video about everybody seeking public comment and why we need it. And so that was a fun partnership with BFT that you can find on Facebook and Instagram, and just a little video featuring staff talking about why we want people's input.
Yeah. Any more questions on the bike plan? All right. Regional metrics discussion. This is the last item. So in our transportation management area certification, performance-based planning was called out as it needs to be increased in our regional planning process. The FHWA definition is long-range planning helps to define key goals and objectives to analyze and evaluate strategies and scenarios for meeting goals. So calling back to what we talked about earlier, is there a way that we could have a regional metric to decide whether the North Richland Bridge is a good idea or at-grade crossings are a good idea, or if a certain project helps pedestrians throughout the region? So we are aiming to develop regional metrics for an increased level of analysis for local jurisdictions to understand how their projects impact the entire region. And then that will be used in our next update of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which will be starting that in July of 25 and then adopting it before May of 27. We're aiming probably December of 2026. So some examples of regional metrics include presence of sidewalk, width of sidewalk, bicycle, level of traffic stress. So this is the one regional metric that has been approved by the Technical Advisory Committee and is included within our bicycle plan. If you want a definition of level of traffic stress, I can explain that to you after. I don't want to have to go through that right now. Transit, this is an example, but it's transit travel time. So it's how fast are you moving on a bus versus a car on the same corridor. We are going to be taking data from that transit spot and pairing it with what BFT's long-range plan. So it's showing consistency in planning documents. For vehicles, the volume to capacity ratio, those were those different colors you were seeing on that regional system analysis map. Vehicle travel speed along corridors, number of crashes. So that's tying into our congestion management process and the safety action plan. Freight, is it on a WashDOT freight corridor? What's the amount of freight tonnage? And then land use, this is getting into travel demand modeling, but how does that land use tie in with what transportation is going on? Is it in a more downtown area? Is it in an industrial residential location? So how are those projects interplaying with one another? These are examples of regional metrics. So when there is a project, so for example, our regional transportation priorities, we will be able to put it into each one of these with all the project or with all these metrics and say, this one will have the greatest impact on the region. We're not aiming to do that now. We're aiming to do it within the Metropolitan Transportation Plan so it can be shown what projects are of greatest benefit for the entire region. So Kate, I hope that answers your question that you asked. Any questions on this?
hope you enjoy your job.
What a dad job.
Oh my gosh. That's a lot. Thank you, Aaron. All right, Zach.
All right, so a little bit of a tough act to follow, but I promise not as long. Main crux of our work for local government programs in the Economic Development District is the beginning of our full update to the SEDS document next year. As I stated in our last meeting, the deadline from EDA was moved up from October to June, so we're stepping up with starting our SWOT analysis now. The findings of the SWOT analysis will dictate our strategic vision and the strategic goals for the region for the next 5 years when it comes to regional economic development policies. So we are doing a sort of two-pronged approach. The last time we did a SWOT for this was during the peak COVID season, so it was merely a survey and some virtual interviews over Zoom. So we are doing a survey just to have greater outreach. That's been released. We have gotten some responses there. So we've sent that out to everybody as far as our stakeholder and board list. Please share it with your teams and anyone else that might be interested. You can also find it on the homepage of our website as well. But now, since we are meeting in person this iteration, we are going to offer 3 workshops for a SWOT. So that'll be more interactive. We're looking for conversation, that sort of thing. Signups are going out today. So we've got one on November 21st, one planned for December 3rd, and then we're going to have a virtual workshop just for people that are busy and can't make it on December 17th over Zoom. So we have signups that are going out today. We're also putting that on our website too. So for you and your teams and any other stakeholders in the region, whichever day and time would work well for everybody, feel free to sign up for the opportunity that works best with your schedule. So any questions on the updates for the SEDS there? All right. We've been busy with funding opportunities. As stated before in some of our workshops during a presidential election cycle, they try to push as many funding opportunities out so the outgoing administration can say, look what we funded. We expect just with the state budgeting coming up, the state legislative session, and then the transition in Washington, D.C., we expect funding opportunities to sort of decrease in the first quarter of 2025. That's what we're hearing in a lot of our workshops.
Are you hearing that from the states, especially on the state side, right?
Definitely on the state side, yeah.
That's what I'm hearing too, okay.
Yeah, I was in something with Commerce yesterday, and that was one of the main points they iterated to us.
Yeah, I'm on legislative steering committee for WASAC, that's always one of them, and I'm hearing the same thing. Hold back a little bit.
Yeah, we're hearing that from WIDA as well.
Okay.
So, but we are sending out infrastructure grant opportunities, rural economic development loan programs, public works board emergency funding. Some of these are targeted to like City of Connell with Len Weston pulling out of the industry there. But we're also looking at continually working with our PUDs on grid modernization grants. EPA clean school bus programs, which ties into our K-12 education, but also our PUDs because they have to supply power to clean school buses. So really cross-pollinating, as we say, with our jurisdictions and our membership as well. And then some flood mitigation assistance grants in flood-prone areas as well. So that's been sent out to our membership in the last month, and continually getting a lot of the infrastructure grant opportunities each week. And just wading through if it's applicable to our region or not. Still continue our regional technical assistance and getting to know, maintaining our contacts with our member jurisdictions. So this month we're our meetings with the cities of Kennewick and Richland, directly with their staff, just to see, hey, what's going on? What can we help you with? What are your project priorities for the new year? And that's helped us with some grant funding, at least pushing out some grant opportunities specifically tailored to our communities. We did a lot of outreach. We concluded our small cities, not small cities, but our fall 2024 conversations, which is just our convening of membership for meetings of note. We had State Senator Matt Binke to talk about the AI, Artificial Intelligence Task Force, and just a fascinating journey on how it could be used in government, and a lot of new ideas, a lot of scary ideas, a lot of cool ideas. That is posted on our YouTube, so we encourage everyone to look that up and kind of check that meeting out. Richland and West Richland, Port of Benton, and Prosser EDA joined that one, both in person and virtual. And then the day after, we had our special Congressional Connections meeting. During the October recess, Congressman Newhouse was able to join us in person here, along with the staffs of our senator delegation as well. A lot of great in-depth discussion from City of Richland, Pasco, Port of Pasco, and then a cool interactive display from the Kennewick PFD on what's going on with their expansions at the Three Rivers Convention Center. So great opportunities for our communities to connect with our elected delegation, and it was great to host the congressman here as well in person. I believe that's all for me on that. I'll take any questions for local government programs or economic development.
I would like to just encourage all of us to share that survey and the dates of those meetings so that we can get some representation from all of us there.
Yeah, we expect on the SWOT to have a lot of different information. There's a lot of COVID recovery type information, COVID resilience that we got in 2021. So we'd like to see what we can do post-COVID here.
Any other comments, questions? All right. Michelle?
Okay. So just a reminder for everybody, we are in our process for 2025 executive committee appointments. So I do need to have your appointee information by Monday, December 2nd. So just as a reminder, each subcategory of member, those amongst themselves determine who they would like to represent them on the executive committee. Once those appointments are provided to me, then we will ratify those appointments at the December 20th board meeting. So again, our subcategories are county, large city, small city, port districts, and transit agency. Any questions about that?
Have you heard from?
I have not had well, other than I did speak with BFT's new general manager, so and they're their own category. So Thomas is prepared to get engaged. Otherwise, I have not had any official final reports back from anybody. So if you are not having those conversations, please let me know. And of course, according to our bylaws, if for some reason you cannot decide who you would like to have represent you, or perhaps the board representatives in your category, everybody said not it, then that would come back to the board for nominations and a vote to have an at-large representative in that spot.
Executive committee meetings are few and far between.
It's true.
And so it's important that we have somebody in each of those capacities, but the time commitment is not large.
Okay. So then on that note, then we will also at the December 20th meeting have our officer elections for the year for chair and vice chair. Those are 1-year terms. In order to be eligible to be the chair or vice chair, an individual would be one of those executive committee appointees, have to have served on the board for at least a year and represent a member in good standing. Member in good standing is just that your jurisdiction has paid their dues for the year and your attendee has been attending meetings regularly. So for the elections, we'll take nominations from the floor. For that, we'll tally the votes using the online polling like we did last year, only we will actually send everybody the link during the meeting. So that it runs a little smoother than we did last go around. Any questions?
So this will happen at next month's meeting?
Next month's meeting.
Very good.
Okay, and as promised, we did conduct the board meeting survey to just verify whether we should consider moving our monthly board meeting. Of our 13 regular members, 9 responded to the survey, so that was a good response from our board members. All but 2 said just leave it alone, which was actually reassuring for me, because then all the subsequent questions about when you're available and what time of day and what week of the month, there was absolutely no consistency in anyone's answers for that. So we're just going to leave the board meeting where it is. And Gretel's not here, so I'll make sure and pass that back on to her. Okay, so operations updates. As you can see, marking on the wall here, we're getting ready to install our new conference room, our IT equipment. So when we come back for the December board meeting, our setup in here will be just a little bit different. We're in the middle of doing our employee annual review process. And also in the middle of conducting our biennial salary study. So we'll have that information, I'm assuming by the December board meeting. So partnership and engagement, the staff of the COG and TRIDEC met together last month to just understand our roles and priorities as an organization, build relationships between staff, have a little bit more of that conceptual conversation about what does it look like as organizations to partner together and speak with one voice as a region. So I appreciated TRIDEC reaching out and wanting to have that interaction with us. So that was great. The Benton County PFD, there's been a lot of activity on my part supporting them as we look at how they can extend their taxing authority in relation to Kennewick PFD's Three Rivers expansion and what's going on with that bond. And it's been a lot of research and information between not only the two local PFDs, but also the state tax office and clarifying how those RCWs dictate how that can happen. So a lot of interaction while we work through that process. The Tri-City Regional PFD, I have a meeting set with the city managers for the first week of December to just coordinate an update about what is the status of the regional PFD. Does it have the potential to be activated and used at some point in the future, or are we keeping it on life support for no reason, and what should be happening with that? So I'll bring back an update when I know more. Okay.
I'm just wondering, for the regional PFD, has there been any meetings recently that haven't been canceled due to participation?
No. So by bylaws, they are expected to have 2 meetings a year. But with turnover of appointees and by RCW, you have to have 2 elected officials from each of the participating cities and 1 representative from their respective PFD. And so so to have quorum, you have to have 2 of the 3 from each of the 3 cities. So it does, and that's by RCW. So it makes it complicated to get those a quorum for those meetings to hold them. And also it's this messy, self-perpetuating problem of the only item of business that exists is the amount of time we spend to coordinate the meetings that we legally have to have in order to keep this entity going. And then tracking the time we spend to be reimbursed by the cities from the funding source that doesn't exist for this PFD. It's been a lot of just messy effort for everybody. So that's really what I'm seeking to understand with the city managers is, do they in fact have the capacity to be reactivated at some point in the future? And if so, then yes, we need to put some effort into streamlining the bylaws so they only have to meet once a year instead of twice a year, at least get that legally kind of aligned. And then figure out, how do we have the cities get to a place where they can provide just a lump sum amount of funding so we don't have to keep doing this perpetual billing and work on our part.
Sounds like the real question is there still buy-in?
Well, I think that
if there's not, people are not going to be showing, whether it's due to conflict of schedules or what.
Yeah, and it's not really even the buy-in so much, is that because of how infrequently they meet, and then the transition of elected officials, then do you get a new one appointed, and when does that fall in the meeting cycle? And it only takes one or two to all of a sudden you can't have a meeting. But then also, it took a legislative action to set it up. So nobody wants to do away with it if we really have the chance to use it. But somebody with more knowledge than me needs to kind of look at with what each of the individual cities PFDs have going on. What's the percentage of available tax revenue? Is there even revenue available for any foreseeable future to do a regional project, even if you could get a bond passed amongst all three cities, which the one time they attempted to do that, they didn't get it done. So yeah, just a lot of questions there. So the current brownfield assessment grant, we've reconnected with City of Kennewick to just kickstart. That's our last project, is the downtown area-wide redevelopment plan that we're doing on their behalf. We did get a 1-year extension to finish that last project under the current grant. So we're focusing on getting that done. For the 2025 brownfield application, it was submitted yesterday. Woo! So $1.2 million on behalf of that coalition. Now we wait. It'll be April or May. We'll hear whether we were successful with that or not. Broadband Action Team, Washington State has now finally opened the BEAD application process. It's my understanding that Franklin PUD and Benton PUD both intend to make applications for infrastructure funding for their identified areas. Our digital equity subcommittee, their next meeting will be December 10th. They're still working on a survey to understand needs and providers related to digital literacy in the region. The Goodwill of the Columbia and the Benton-Franklin Health District arranged for briefings with Representative Barnard, Representative Connors, Senator Banky to just talk about digital equity and the Columbia Connects Coalition grant application that was submitted last month. That, of course, is a federal level grant, but just to keep them informed of what's happening in the region. And that was it for me.
Questions or comments for Michelle? Thank you.
There you go.
Sorry.
All right, hi everyone. Since March, so I'm bringing here before you the EV electrical infrastructure analysis. And since March of this year, we've been working with and engaging TAC members, such as public works directors, planning directors, and other key stakeholders from jurisdictions and throughout the community to build an electric vehicle charging network. And this is designed to prioritize, figure out where communities can get the best bang for their buck to build EV chargers and to, I guess, leverage these locations through a regionally adopted network to go after state and federal funds. And this slide shows the 29 locations that we've identified using statistical methodology, as well as just kind of regional expertise from each of our member jurisdictions.
How was that feedback received? Was it positive?
Yes. So it's
straight from the cities and the counties. I just want to kind of let everybody know.
Yeah. It was it was recommended by the TAC. And it's
which is important.
Yeah.
So they were positive. They had a positive.
Yeah, because it's not really spending any money. It's basically positioning ourselves in light of things that are happening on the state level to kind of ensure that, I guess, our automobile needs are met and our fueling needs are met as more and more cars become electric. So yeah, but does that answer your question?
No, it does. Well, we have one over there at the county, up on the long distance campus as well, so I was wondering how the rest of it had been.
Yeah, and I worked with Adam File from Benton County.
The ones that have already gone in different areas is there any organization to those, or are those just ones that people put in just because?
Yeah. So this would be, I mean, people are gonna put them in throughout our region, but this is basically saying, so if I go forward, for instance, if someone wants to put one, I guess, near the Tri-Cities Regional Airport, on their grant application, if they seek outside funding, they would say this is on a regionally adopted network that not only the city of Pasco and the port of Pasco thinks is important, but our whole region thinks it's important. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Cool. So before we go through this proposed motion, does anyone have any questions or any additional questions?
I guess I don't have, this is Charles from Pasco. I don't have really any questions, but just a comment. I'm just super frustrated with all this. It seems like the current state government that's in power has a war on the working class by trying to move people from affordable vehicles to the EV. These peak trip charges, again, penalize the working middle class who are going from, work to home and that kind of stuff. And I get it. Our organization is not meant to be, that voice that, kind of stands up against what now has a 60% majority at the state house. But these EV mandates, they're unachievable. We don't have the grid infrastructure to support it. And even yesterday, I had a whole bunch of roasters and crock pots cooking around my house. And then I made the mistake of turning on the microwave and it tripped the breaker. And my 11-year-old daughter looked at me and she really, we had never really discussed that before because it's not really an issue. And she says, Dad, what do you mean trip a breaker? And so I kind of explained the whole thing to her. And here, out of the mouth of a babe, an 11-year-old looks at me and she says, but Dad, why are they trying to, put everything on the grid and go electric then? And I just was like, yeah, I know that is kind of the bigger problem. So anyways, I know we have to go along with this, but, I just, for the sake of the middle class, the sake of people who can't afford electric vehicles, and then just really our state just really, through high taxes and through the gas tax and other stuff, trying to, force us into doing what they want. I mean, it's really just amounts to virtue signaling on their part because a lot of this is unachievable. So anyways, thank you.
Yeah, and I definitely hear your concerns, council member. They're valid. And I guess the goal is just to kind of position ourselves in the best possible light and instilling by adopting this regional network. And so, without any further ado,
I would call for the proposed motion from someone.
I move to adopt the Benton-Franklin County Regional EV Charging Network as outlined in the Benton-Franklin Regional EV Infrastructure Analysis.
Is there a second? Thank you, Kate. I'll second that. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the Benton-Franklin County Regional EV Charging Network as outlined in the Benton-Franklin Regional EV Infrastructure Analysis. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you.
That's it.
That's it.
No more action items.
Okay. New business. Does anyone have any new business they'd like to bring?
Hey, Charleston Pasco, just one more time on a lighter note, good things are happening around Pasco. The Road 68 and Court Street intersection roundabout is just about complete, other than the residents that are south towards the river. There's still kind of a little workaround there, but that is obviously one of the bigger intersections and been the most dangerous for a while. So happy to see that nearly complete. And also even out at the Road 100 interchange, I know we did a traffic revision the last week or two, which has further helped because those people coming off from Richland don't have to kind of go through the roundabout anymore. They can start using that right lane that bypasses the roundabout. So even that's helping. And so, all these projects look like they're on time and everything. So yeah, just really thankful for lots of the good things happening here in Pasco. So thanks again for the support, everybody.
Thank you, Jim. All right, it's time for director updates. And we just kind of go through the list, and if you have any updates from your jurisdiction, please let us know. Benton County.
Just in general, it was nothing to do with transportation, but we just went ahead and did groundbreaking for the recovery center and Kennewick, and that was pretty awesome. It was an awesome event. So groundbreaking now, and then hopefully next year, and next year it'll open up for them. So it'll be a great thing for all the cities within both counties. So it's a good thing. That's all I have.
Large area. Yeah, great. All right. City of Kennewick, Carrie, do you have anything?
No, I don't have any updates.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Charles, any additions?
No, thank you. And I apologize, Madam Chair. Yeah, those last comments were meant to be for the director update, not new business.
Well, I think that's just fine.
Thank you for being gracious, Madam Chair.
City of Prosser, was Marcella here?
Didn't-
No. Okay. Joanna from City of Richland.
Nothing from me.
Okay. Kate, we're in.
All I just have to say is we just in West Richland had our first workshop and first hearing of the proposed budget, and hopefully others aren't in the same position we are, but it ain't pretty. So may the odds be ever in your favor. I guess is all I gotta say about budgets.
Good luck.
Thanks.
All right. Commissioner Didier from Franklin County.
No updates from me.
Okay. Roy from.
I got a couple things. First of all, we're excited that we have completed the at-grade crossing at State Street and at the Airport Way. And unfortunately, due to some funding constraints, we're going to defer the 240 from Rapids from 4 to 25. So we'll hopefully be able to get that last at-grade crossing completed next year. So, my report.
You guys are working hard on that.
Well, we're trying to get that railroad back up to 25 miles an hour.
Yeah,
That's the.
Yep. You guys are working good.
Good luck. That's great. Skip, anything from the Port of Kennewick?
Yeah, just a couple things. We just had the results of the SAO audit, and we've had 29 years of absolutely clean audits. So we're pretty proud of that. And then on November 22nd, we have Cookie's groundbreaking at Vista Field. So it'll be the first time dirt's turning at Vista Field for a new restaurant.
Good.
I'll be there to see you, Skip.
Me too.
Thank you.
Okay, at the Port of Pasco, we have a lot of things going on. This week we had an initial celebration. Next year is our 85th year anniversary at the Port of Pasco. And we kind of had an initial celebration for that, as well as honoring some of our long-term tenants at Big Pasco and the airport, like Lamson and Bergstrom, all of those. We also celebrated Jim Clinworth, who will be retiring from his District 3 position at the end of this year. So we will be looking for someone to replace him for the remainder of his term, which isn't up until the end of 27. So anybody in District 3, which includes Connell. So, you know, with what's going on in Connell, it would be wonderful. We have applications and a job description. We even wrote a job description for the commissioners.
Oh.
And
That's scary.
is on our portofpasco.org website. We're also starting a search for a new executive director. Randy will be retiring in March. So the next few months we'll be really busy trying to find a new executive director. Prothman is the search firm that we've hired. And those applications are also available. So if anyone is interested in that, looking forward to that. So with all of that going on, it's and the holidays, we're going to be really busy. So that's all I have. Anything from, oh, he's not here. Well, that's all we have. Is there any other business that we need to talk about this morning?
Hey, I'd just like to say one more time that presentation from Aaron earlier, giving the history of Tri-Cities bridges and traffic and everything was absolutely excellent and one of the better presentations I've heard in a long time. So fantastic job, Aaron. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Good job, Aaron.
We should probably share actually that Aaron gave a version of that presentation at the Infra Day in Seattle to planners around the state to just highlight this issue for them too.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, you know, we travel across bridges around here all the time, and sometimes you don't even think they're a bridge.
Yeah.
So,
Related to that, I don't know if you're aware of this, but AWC's annual conference for 2025 is going to be in Kennewick next year.
Oh,
I
nice.
don't know if BFCOG has thought about maybe contacting AWC and seeing if you'd like to present at the
Nice.
conference, since it's
that's
going
a
to be
good
right there.
idea.
No travel dollars needed.
Mhm.
Nice. That's a great suggestion, Kate.
All right, our next meeting will be Friday, December 20th. And get your representatives for each of the jurisdictions into Michelle before that meeting. And be ready to, with your nominations for chair and vice chair. And I think that's all. I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you for coming and happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Thank you.